everybody. This is Module 1 of Geometry. We're going to talk about properties of segments, and our two standards that we're going to kind of touch on are I can label, draw, define geometry terms, and I can use segment properties to solve problems. So here is some vocab words that you will need to know in this unit, and really all of geometry. A point is a location on a diagram. The picture is just a dot. Here we go. And we label it with a capital letter. So just one capital letter. I'm going to name it P. A line is an infinite set of points that extends in two directions. So I have a line with an arrow on either side because it extends in two directions. You can name it a couple different ways. I have, let's make that a little better. I have a lowercase cursive letter, or I have 2 points on the line. So if I have X, Y, you can name it either with X, Y with a little line above it with the 2 arrows. You could also name it YX. So it doesn't matter which direction, which way the points are going. Or you can do line L with a cursive lowercase letter. Alright, our next word is called a ray, and that is a portion of a line which starts at a point and goes infinitely in one direction. So here's a point, and it goes in one direction. So if I would say this is M and N, you always have to start at your point and go to N. So your arrow always goes to the right. It always starts with the point. How we name it. A segment is a part of a line bounded by 2 distinct endpoints. So here are my 2 endpoints, and there's my line. It should be straight, it's a little squiggly. So I can say XY, XY with the segment bar above it is how we name it. A plane is a flat two-dimensional surface. So think of floor, a wall, a ceiling. Those are planes if they were two-dimensional. And how we draw a two-dimensional figure is it's kind of like a parallelogram. And you can name it a couple different ways. We can have a capital bolded letter in the corner. So that could be, that's not very good. Here we go. Or you can name it with 3 points. So I can say this is plane P, or I could say it's plane ABC. So if you name it with 3 points, they have to be points on the plane. If you label it by the plane name, you can just say plane P. A midpoint divides or bisects a segment into 2 congruent segments. So if I have a segment here, let's say it's AB, and I have a midpoint right in the middle there, and I say it's M, I can put tick marks on either side because I know that it's in 2 congruent segments. Congruent, we'll talk about in a little bit. Congruent means the same length. And how we can say that, AM, segment AM is congruent to MB. And an equal sign with a little squiggly on top is called a congruent sign. And we're going to talk about that later. Bisector, a point, ray, line, or segment, or plane that intersects a segment at its midpoint. So again, it could be a point, it could be a line, it could be a ray. I'm just going to make it a line. Shows that it bisects. Bisects means to cut in two. Okay, so whenever something is being bisected, you're cutting it in half. All right, so now let's practice a little bit. Name a ray with endpoint A. So remember, I always have to start with my endpoint, and then you can go in either direction. Now, if we look at our picture, there's only one arrow. So we would probably go A, D, and then you have to put a little ray above it. Give two other names for line N. So N, remember we can name it by the lowercase cursive letter. So that is the name for a line. You can also name it by 2 points. Well, the 2 points that are on there are B and C. So B, C. Or you can say C, B. And either way would be the name for line N. Give another name for plane P. P is the name of the plane. It's in the corner. The other name you can do is, remember, is 3 points. So I can pick any 3 points on there. I can say plane ABC. But you could have done BCD, you could have done DAB, doesn't matter. Are BA and BD the same ray? So first, does it have the same endpoint? Yes. So that's first decision. So they both start at B. Now, do they go in the same direction? BA, yep, and BD, yes. So this is, yes, they are the same ray because they have the same endpoint and they're going in the same direction. All right, so now that we're going to have a couple drawings, sketching. Sketch AB with 2 other labeled points on the line Y and Z. So first we are labeling it, drawing a line. And you can see that either by the word line or by that right there. So I'm going to draw a line. And if it's line AB, that means A and B are on the line. So I'm going to draw 2 points and label them A and B. Now it says 2 other labeled points are on the line. So I am going to put 2 other points and label them Y and Z. Sketch AB and ray CD intersecting each other at L. So I have a line and a ray, and they intersect each other at L. So I know the intersection is L. My line is AB, so I'm going to do A and B, and my ray has to start at C and go through D. And D could have been anywhere on the line. A and B could be anywhere on the line. It doesn't have to look exactly like mine. The next one is sketch 2 different lines that intersect plane X at different points. Now this one's a little bit trickier. So I have a plane and my bolded X in the corner. And then it says the lines are intersecting the plane at different points. So it's like it's going through the plane. So if you would punch a pencil through a paper, you're going to try to draw that on a 2-dimensional figure, even though it's 3 dimensions. So that's where we get the dotted line. So there's one, and it intersects it at that point. Here's another one. And there's 2 different lines. It doesn't say to name the lines, so we don't have to. You can if you wanted to. But the dotted line is what's behind the plane, and we can't quite see it. Alright, so here's where the segment addition postulate comes in. And this kind of comes through a ton for the rest of the, really the year in geometry. So how I do this is I say it's a part plus the part equals the whole. So AC is the whole, and I'm going to add AB plus BC. So that's where the part plus the part equals the whole. And I think that this really helps. Part plus the part equals the whole really helps understand kind of the whole concept of segment addition postulate. We're going to do angle addition postulate and all these other things coming up. Also, AC is the measure of segment AC. So if you notice, there's no segment bar above it. We've always put a segment bar above our segments. Now, they're different. So this is your measurement. It's a length. It's not a segment. This is the actual segment. This is the length. So use the diagram to find KL. They're asking to find KL, the measure of that length of the segment. Well, let's do part plus part equals the whole. Pretty much all of you probably already have done 38 minus 15 in your head, and that's fine. Just for the sake of part plus part equals the whole, I'm going to do 15 plus KL equals 38. Part plus part equals the whole. So then I minus 15, and I get KL to be 23. And that is my answer. Our next one is not as easy because it has some x values, and you have to find x. So it says dg, so this whole thing is 10x plus 2. So we are going to do the same process, part plus part equals the whole. So 4x minus 3 is one part. 4x minus 3. And then our other part is 2x plus 21. And then your whole is 10x plus 2. So part plus part equals the whole. Now it just goes back to solving equations. So this goes back to algebra 1, all that good stuff. Combine like terms, 6x plus 18 equals 10x plus 2. There's other modules for solving equations if we're needing some practice on that. So x equals 4. Now it says find DO. So also in geometry, we have to pay attention to what it's asking for. It's not always going to ask you to find x. It's going to ask you to find different things. So DO is 4x minus 3. So DO is 4 times 4, whoops, not plus, minus 3. DO equals 16 minus 3, so DO equals 13. And there we go. Our next example, we are going to skip. Here's our congruent segments. So your notation, line segments have the same length if they are congruent. Your notation is a congruent sign. I've already kind of showed you a little bit. This is what a congruent sign looks like. This is an equal sign. So lengths are equal. Segments are congruent. So those are the two different notations. I always say if one has a hat, they all have to have hats. So if you see this over here, none of them have hats, but over here, all of them have a hat. AB has a hat, the congruent sign, equal sign has a hat to make it a congruent sign, and then the CD has a hat. So you got to make sure you just pay attention to the notation. Find RS. Well, these tick marks mean that they're going to be the same length. So if this is 21.7, this is also 21.7. So then it's 43.4 is RS. So all I did was add up 21.7 plus 21.7 to get this total RS. So that's what the tick marks mean. Point C is the midpoint of BD. Find the length of BC. So this right here, if C is the midpoint, if you see midpoint, you can put tick marks on there. If you see tick marks, that means that they're equal. So 3x minus 2 equals 2x plus 3. So then I just solve. Plus 2 plus 2. So that's 1x. This is 5. Now it says find the length of BC. BC is 3x minus 2. So BC, 3 times 5 minus 2. So that's 15 minus 2 is 13. Notice I did not put segment bar above it because I'm talking about length. So I just leave it. Bisect is also another word for that you can put in tick marks. So if you see the word bisect or midpoint, you can put in tick marks. If you see tick marks, you know that these two pieces are going to be equal. So you can set them equal and solve. I trust that we can do that. I'm going to go next slide. Here is 3 different problems. We're not going to go through all of them. We're going to set them all up though. So TZ is 2x. So I'm going to put in TZ, and that's 2x. ZW is 3. And TW, so this whole piece, is 15. So I always put in those little brackets just to help organize the problem. So now it says find the value of x is the question. So now this, all it is part plus part equals the whole. So you know the total length, you know each part, so now you can do part plus part equals the whole. So 2x equals 12, so x would equal 6. So this is a very simple problem after you get all of the numbers and expressions in there. This says y is the midpoint of TW. So this right here is going to be the same, and z is in there, so I'm going to do a bracket and a tick mark on the bracket. TY is 3x, and TW is 30. So now we can do this a couple different ways. One way you can say tick marks mean that they're equal, so this is also 3x. So that means that 3x plus 3x equals 30. Another way, if you know that two parts are the same and the total is 30, I could say that this is 15 and this is 15. So I could have said 3x equals 15. Both are correct. Both are going to give you the same answer. X equals 5. Over here, if you divide by 3, x equals 5 as well. Get the same answer, just different way of thinking about the problem. Alright, this one is a little bit trickier. If yz equals zw, so I know that I'm going to put tick marks here because they're congruent. Yz is 4x minus 4. Ty is 22. And Tw, so this whole piece, is 2x plus 38. And y is y the midpoint of Tw? So I want to know, is Yw also 22? So when I see tick marks, I mean that they are equal. Well, if one is 4x minus 4, then this is 4x minus 4. So I can do part plus part, and then I have another part, and that equals the whole. So this could solve again by part plus part, and then I have another part, and that equals the whole, 2x plus 38. And now it's just to combine like terms, so I get 8x, and I get 22 minus 8, so is that 18, 14? And then I get 6x. So is that 24? So x equals 4. So now I'm not done because I have to plug it in. I have to answer my question. My question is the y the midpoint of Tw? So now I already know Ty is 22. I need to figure out what this length is. There we go. So I know that x is 4. So 4 times 4 is 16. 16 minus 4 is 12 plus 12 is 24. Well, no, it's not. So that means no, y is not the midpoint of Tw. Alright, so that is a very quick overview of all the segments, properties and segment notations and solving equations and all of that. So now there is going to be a little practice for you and a quiz.